Parashat Pinchas, Tufshi and Payai B'Siyata D'Shmaya. This week's shir is being sponsored by Reb Tzvi Hirsch Spet in the honor, the big simcha coming up this Shabbos, the bar mitzvah of his son Noyam Zev. Noyam Zev ben Tzvi Hirsch. The Mazel Tov, the Simen Tov, we should be zoiche to go into Noyam Oil Toire Mitzvahs. To be Mekayim Toire Mitzvahs with a sweetness. Noyam Oil Toire Mitzvahs. And Tzvi Hirsch with his wife, they should all see a lot of nachas from him, from all of their children. And with all brachas b'siyata d'shmaya. Shkoyach. First, I want to start this week's Parashat Pinchas, as we are in the 3 weeks in the Yemei Bein HaMetzorim. So we see towards the middle of the parsha, or maybe even more towards the end of the parsha, we speak about the karbanos that we bring every Yom Tov. First, the pasuk starts with the karban atomid that we say every day. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe leimot. It's by Chamishi. By Chamishi it starts. Tzaves b'nei Yisrael v'amartu aleim es korban yilachmi leisha yireach nichoichi tishberu la'akriv li b'moyadoi. V'amartu lohem zeu isha shetakrivu l'Hashem kvosim b'nei shonot tmimim shnayim layoim oilothom. Every day you bring 2. Es hakeves echot ta'aseh v'boiker. Those are the 2 tmidim that we bring every day. Tomet shel shachar, tomet shel beinu arbaim. And we daven every day shachris mincha. Shachris is mechuven keneged tomet shel shachar. Mincha is keneged tomet shel beinu arbaim. And then the pasuk goes on speaking about the korban mitzvah of Shabbos, the Chodesh, and then all of the Yomim Tovim. Tzadikim explained why Dafkin the Yemei Bein HaMetzorim we remind the karbonos mitzvah of all the Yom Tovim, because to inspire Klal Yisrael, because in those days we mourn on the Chorban Beis Hamikdash. So to inspire them and give them Chizuk, strengthen them, reminding them there are the Yom Tovim during the year. In those times everybody gets elevated. So you take Chizuk by reading in those days of all the Yom Tovim. Even more than that, they mentioned that 21 days from Shivose Betames till Tisha B'Av they bring a Marsha. The Marsha says that it's against the 21 days from Rosh Hashanah till Hoshana Rabbah. I once heard from my Rebbe, the Beyane Rebbe Shlita. He said an amazing thing. You're going to see on Shabbos, or when you are Maveh Sedre, every Yom Tiv, after every Yom Tiv and before we start the next Yom Tiv, so there's a Samach. A Samach refers to a stuma. That means it's a parasha, it's a new parasha, but it's a stuma. There's a lot of letters empty between them. The only place where there's a psucha is between Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah. After the pasuk mentions the V'yoyim HaBikurim, and before it starts, it's by Peirik Chavtes. Over there it's a pei, a psucha. Like this, between Pesach and Shavuos is a stuma. Between Rosh Hashanah and Yom HaKodesh is stuma. Yom HaKodesh and Sikh is stuma. The only place of psucha is between Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah. So he said, Gevaldik. We ask, and we daven, the Navi tells us that Hashem promises us that Tzoyim HaRavi, V'Tzoyim HaChamishi, V'Tzoyim U'Asiri, all the 4 Tzoyim, some Gedalia, Sora B'Tevis, Shavas B'Tamas, and Tisha B'Av, are going to be turned over, L'Sosna L'Simcha. They're going to become Yomim Tovim. Even more than that, if I don't remember exactly if it's from the Koshnet Samagit or another tzaddik that explains the Lashon that we say on Pesach Banacht, when we finish the Agoda, we make the bracha Asher Ge'alonu V'Go'alas Aviseinu, and then we say V'Giyonu Alaylu Azeh Lechol Boi Matzah V'Morer. He reached us. We were zoichet to reach this night, to be zoichet to be mekayim the mitzvahs of Pesach. Keini Agiyenu Hashem Alekeini Lemoyadim V'Lergolam Acherim Aboim L'Kreseinu L'Shalom. What's the lashon Acherim? It should have said L'Oid Moyadim V'Regolim, to more Moyadim V'Regolim. What's Acherim? So he explains it refers to Bias HaMashiach, when we're going to get new Yomim Tovim. Shivas B'Tamas is going to be turned into a Yom Tov. Tisha B'Av is going to be turned into a Yom Tov. Moyadim Regalim Acherim, other ones, new Moyadim, new Regalim. So because Shivas B'Tamas and Tisha B'Av are going to be turned over to Yomim Tovim, those 2 days befrat. So that's why over here between Shvius and Rosh Hashanah there's a psucha to show us there still has to come in over here. Between Shvius and Rosh Hashanah still has to come in other Yomim Tovim, Shavas B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av are going to be turned over into a Yom Tov. So we started off with the Parashat of the Korban Atomit, Es Karboni Lachmi Le'ishai. I once heard that the Triske Magid, the Magen Avram from Trisk, he had a minik that whoever came to him to be for Shabbos was his guest. Anybody who wanted was his guest. Sometimes he used to have tens, hundreds of people who were his guests for Shabbos. And it wasn't a cheap maisa this, because he had to buy a lot of food to be able to feed all of the people that came to him. And a lot of times he didn't have the money. He used to take upon himself choives. And the Gabuim, his close people, asked him, Rebbe, who said who? You have to take upon yourself such choives to go in order to be able to feed so many people. So he said, we say, Es Karboni Lachmi Le'ishai. He said like this, Es Karboni, Hashem tells us, what's going to be my korban? Lachmi, if you give bread, Le'ishai, to your people, to my people. Ishai, I like a lashon, ish. Ishai, if I give to eat, if I feed my people, lachmi leishai, that's considered the karbani, and that's reach nichoyach. It's a reach nichoyach l'Hashem. So it pays for me even to go into choivis in order to be able to bring this korban to Hashem. Actually, it's a Gemara. The Gemara says in Peirik Koroy and Brochis, b'zman sheb'samikdash kayim, the mizbeach was mechaper. Achshav shei b'samikdash kayim, shelchon le'shalodam mechaper. When the Gemara says why, Hamarich b'shulchanoi, because he stretches out to see that you take more time. Dilma asa'ani, maybe an oraman, a poor person is going to arrive. The Yovel is going to be able to feed him, is going to be able to give him. So we see that in our days the shulchan shalodim is a kapara, because he brings in guests, he gives to eat for poor people. So es karbani, what could be a korban now? Lachmi leishtai, that's the reach nechoyach. This is what I heard in the name of the Triske Magid. And what I saw, that the Chidah, the holy Chidah, in his Sefer Midbar Kedemois, he brings down from one of the Rishonim, Rabbeinu Ephraim ala Torah, that he says, Hamachalek lechem lu'aniyim, someone who gives out, he distributes lechem, bread for aniyim, ke'ili hikriv kol ha-karbonos. Is ke'ili was makiv all karbonos, and that's pshat and posik as karboni lachmi. Lechem le'ishai, the aniyim, that they are nidoin be'esh. Ishai is from the Lashon fire, like the Pashat Pshat, Ishai, that a korban was burned on the Mizbeach. So the aniyim, they are nidoin be'esh, because they are so poor, and they go through such embarrassment. The Gemara calls it nidoinim be'esh v'amayim. Hekafta elash l'rashenu, banu be'esh v'amayim. Kiva shenitzrach adam lebriois, he is like he's being tortured bu'eshiv amayim. So Isha refers to the aniyim that are nidoi bu'esh. So lechem le'ishai. That's how Rabbeinu Ephraim explains. Goes to Chidu and he says, V'li nere. I want to say a little bit different. Le'ishai refers, Anoshim shali, my people. And he explains it to Hashem. Hashem says, give my bread to my people. The aniyim are considered Hashem's people. Because the Zohar HaKodesh says that Hashem is not like Malcha Imes Olam in a few aspects. One of the aspects is Malcha Imes Olam, Megashmi is the Gemelech. If a kaila is broken, he throws it away. He only does usage with whole kalim shleimen, not monin tevirin. Broken kalim, he throws away. Hashem is just the opposite. If a person is a leiv nishbar, a broken heart, Hashem likes such a person and he uses him. Korov Hashem lenishbar eleiv. Hashem is mishtamesh b'monin tevirim, with broken kalim. Broken, how do you call it, the kala in English?
Vessels.
Vessels. No. Gewaltig. A broken vessel. This is what Hashem likes. So le'ishai, my people, lachmi, just give them my bread. He explains even more why is it considered still Hashem's bread? Because the Gemara says that before a person makes a bracha, everything is from Hashem. After he makes a bracha, it becomes his. So Hashem tells us, even though you weren't yet koine your bread, because you didn't make a bracha, lachmi, you're giving my bread, le'ishai, to my people, it's considered karbani, my carbon, and you're making with that the gewaltig reach nechoyach l'Hashem. This is one. Now, afterwards, the pasuk goes on and it says, this is a chassidische touch, but v'amarto lohem zeu ish asher takrivu l'Hashem kivosem neishonot temimim shnayim lo yoim oy l'somit v'sakev v'sechot tasa v'aboiker v'sakev v'sasheni tasa beinu abayim. One of the big tzaddikim was the tzaddik Reb Yitzchok from Druvich. He was the father of the Rebbe Reb Mechele from Zlotchev. He was a gewaltige tzaddik. He brings down the Agri de Pirke. The Bnei Yissaschar has a sefer Agri de Pirke. He brings down over there Shomati Magidei Emes. People that what they say is true. No, making up stories saying Be'erech Shomati Magidei Emes. That the first time that Rebbe Reb Mechele Zlotchev came to the Holy Baal Shem Tov, the Baal Shem HaKudosh stood up for him. He actually came to become a Talmud, to be Mekabel Morris of the Rebbe. And Baal Shem HaKudosh stood up for him. And he explained, you know why? I'm not standing up for him. I'm actually standing up for his father. His father was Rabbi Yitzchok Druvitcher. And the Baal Shem Tov HaKudosh went on and he explained. His father, Rabbi Yitzchok Druvitcher, was given by birth a very, very, very low neshama. Not tam low, one of the lowest neshamas in his generation. Von den niedrigsten Neshamois bedoiroi. Ha-Neshamois achine michois bedoiroi. One of the lowest Neshamas in his generation he got. And he was zoiche to elevate it until he reached Madreigas Reb Shimon Bar Yechui. Agri de Pirke. Bnei Yissaschar writes, I heard this from Agida Emes that they were standing over there. When the Rebbe Reb Mechele Zlotchev came into the Baal Shem Tov, he stood up. For his father, Reb Yitzchok Druvitcher. He got by birth, he was given a very, very simple, plain, poshet neshama, low, from the lowest possible in his generation, and he elevated it until the Madrega of Reb Shimon Bar Yechui. Pachat Pchotem. This Reb Yitzchok Druvitcher says, and these psukim a gewaltige Sach. Sometimes it happens that a person ends up with a shtickle sichsuch with someone. He has like a fight. How do you say a sichsuch and
argument?
Argument. What did he say? Another word?
Conflict.
A conflict, an argument with someone. Now, a lot of times, actually, you should apologize afterwards and get things straightened out right away that day. By night, before you read Krish B'Shalamit, you say, Riboyne Shloile Bareini Moichel, L'chol Mi Shehichis, Ve'ikri Toisi. I am Moichel for everyone. It's a Gemara. The Gemara says in Masechta Megillah that Marzitre, if I remember correct, used to say every night before he went to sleep, Shore Leimorei, L'chol Man de Metzaroli. Hashem should release and be Moichel anybody who did me any tzar. Shore Leimorei, Hashem should be Moichel and Mavatir, L'chol Man de Metzaroli, for anyone who did any tzar for me. So, on this yesod we say the Riboyne Shloile Bareini Moichel, L'chol Mi Shehichis V'ikne Toisi. Actually, you should call him up, ask forgiveness, apologize. And how does it work? People push it off. And they say, you know what? Before Yom Kippur, I'm going to call them up. And we're going to straighten it out, everything. So he says, Rabbi Yitzchok Druvitcher, V'amartu lahem, Hashem tells Moshe, tell Yiddish kinder, it's only a remes, but he's putting in this remes a deep seeking. We are talking over here about bringing a carbon to Hashem. So Hashem says, Zeha isha shetakrivi Hashem. Do you think that this could be a isha to be makrif for Hashem? That what? Kevosim b'nei shonot temimim. You're going to be koivish. You're going to be, how do you say koivish? Suppress. You're going to be suppressing everything that you have on your heart, letting it build up, and then suppressing it until once a year before Yom Kippur, you're going to actually be mesader everything. Kivosim b'nei shana tamimim. A whole full year, you're going to be suppressing all of the problems, all of the arguments and conflicts that you had with people. No, do it differently. Shnayim layoim oila tomit. Twice a day, clean it up. Clean up everything. Whatever you had suppressed during the night, in the morning you clean it up. And whatever you had during the day, it turns night, it comes beinu abayim. Clean it up, take it out, apologize, get on. Become friends again. Don't leave things should be weighing down on you, on him for so long. It's not good. Do it. Shnaim layoim. Buri chatu adoinoi Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyu b'dvoroi.
Amen.
The Yitzchok of what?
Drovich. The Yitzchok from Drovich. I want to speak a little bit. We're going to go on with the parsha, but first I want to speak a little bit about the Yemei Bein HaMetzorim. The 3 weeks. The pasuk says in Eicha, we say in the Kinnis, Kol Roitfeho Hisegio Bein HaMetzorim. Pasuk Pshat, it means all those that they were chasing after Yiddish kinder, they wanted to harm them. They actually Hisegio, they reached them. They reached them and they were able to do harm to Klal Yisrael. Where Bein HaMetzorim, when they met them between the Gevulot, between the
Borders.
Okay, between the borders, Bein HaMetzorim, between the borders. That's where they caught up with Klal Yisrael. Kol Retfeu Segiu Bein HaMetzorim. Brings down the Koshin Tzemagid in his holy Sefer Avodas Yisrael. On Pirkei Avos, he has in the back, in the end of the Sefer on Pirkei Avos, there's a Mishnah over there that the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, Havei Shakud Lil Metoire. You should have a big desire. Shakud means a desire. You have to have a big rotzoin. Shkida. Yeah, you call it, that's how you say shkida. Someone that does a thing constantly is like shoikid. Does it steady, constantly. He has a strong, what? Consistently. Have a shokid lil metoire. You should do it consistently. Be shoikid to limit that. Brings down the Koshin Tzemagid. I heard from my Rebbe, the Magid from Ezrich, the holy Magid, that every person who wants to become closer to Hashem, those weeks, the 3 weeks, those days are very mesugel to get close to Hashem. Why? Because when the king is in his palace, you want to get an appointment by the king, you have to write up, then they let you know when you have an appointment, and when you arrive there, you have to go through so many, how do you say it, so many levels. Ministers and people, till you are zoiche to go in lefnei v'lefnim to the king. But when the Melech is wandering around, really, he has his servants around, but it's much easier to get to talk to him. You just push a little bit, and you ask, can I get in? And you go on the wagon, and you schmooze with the king. Those days, Hashem Kavyochel goes in Golis. You don't understand what it means, but he leaves his palace. That's how it says in Zohar HaKodesh. And he's wandering around. So when Hashem is wandering around, whoever wants can get closer to him. And in those days, Hashem seeks, Kavyochel, it's hard to say, but he's awaiting and he seeks out that we should be a Mesameach. Because if we could say by the Shechina Akdoshe, Bechin of Atzvis, in those days, he needs it more. And how could you make him happy? By learning, davening, anything that you do good, you're making simcha to Hashem Yisborach, and it's very choshev in those days. So he goes on and he says, Havei is Begematria 21. Hey, Vav, Yud. Havei, in those 21 days, you should be shakud lil metoide. You should do it more constantly, with a more desire. Learn Torah, whatever. Do mitzvahs, masim toivim. Try to do something better, l'kvoid Hashem, and you could get closer. And he says, the Magid says, Pshat and Posik, Kol roit feo. Roitfel is roidivka. Anyone who tries to chase Hashem, he wants to be a roidivka, he wants to get close to Hashem. Anyone, his sigiu could reach him, Bein HaMetzorim in those days. Much easier than during the year, you could get close to Hashem. You just be shokud lil metoire. Try to do whatever you could, even better in limud HaTorah and kiyum HaMitzvahs, and in that way, kol ritfer sigiu Bein HaMetzorim, you could be zoiche to reach and to grab Chaz v'Shalom and get close to, not Chaz v'Shalom, and to grab to Hashem and get close to Hashem Yisborach. I thought this nice gematria. If we can make the gematria of the three words, Shokud Lil Moitoire, Havei is 21. Now the other words are Shokud Lil Moitoire. It's the exact same numeral gematria, like the pasuk called Reitfel Esigiu Bein HaMetzorim. To show us that Havei, these 21 days, you should be Shokud Lil Moitoire. It's the same gematria like Kol Reitfel Esigiu Bein HaMetzorim. Kol Roidivka could be Masig Hashem in those days in Bein HaMetzorim. Now, we want to become closer to Hashem. We want to make Him an Achasriach. There's a lot of things that you want to get better, but I think that the three things that it's the most choshev, critical to work on, are the three haftoides of those 3 weeks. Those 3 weeks are called Tlose de Poranise. The 3 weeks that we read by the haftoide, the Poranias that Hashem said that it's going to come on Klal Yisrael. This week we read haftoide Divrei Yirmiyahu, the words of Yirmiyah that he spoke to Klal Yisrael. Next week the haftoide is Shimi Devar Hashem Beis Yaakov. Yirmiyah goes on and he tells Klal Yisrael, listen to what I'm saying. And Parshas Devarim, Shabbos Chazoin, is the haftoide Chazoin Yeshayahu ben Omoy. It's what he saw Benevuah, the Pironius, the bad things that are going to come on Klal Yisrael. So those 3 weeks we read the haftoide Telosa de Poranise, the 3 weeks of the Pironius. After it starts, Shiva de Nechemte, 7 weeks of Nechama. How do you call Nechama? Salvation? Consolation. Consolation. The 7 weeks that we read haftoides every week, consulting, no, not consulting. Consoling Klal Yisrael. Nachamu, Ami, and like this on for 7 weeks, consoling Klal Yisrael. Now actually, the whole reason of our mourning is only because we know that we're going to have the consoling. If Chaz v'Shulam, there's no nechama, there's no reason to cry. You don't cry on spilled milk. You cry on something that you know it's going to come back. So you're yearning for it. You want it so strong, you cry for it. They say in the pasuk over there that when Basya Baspari opened up the box of Moshe, it says that she saw him. What did she see? She couldn't listen out before she opened up and hear him crying. So the Baalei Musar explained, she saw on his crying, it's not a crying of Yiyush. Yiyush means of despair. It's a crying of tikva, with a hope. He was crying the cry of Klal Yisrael, knowing that we're going to go out from Mitzrayim. We are not crying because we are here for good. We are going to be going out from Mitzrayim. The Shiva de Nechemta gives us the power to mourn on the Chorban Beis Hamikdash because we know and we are sure the Nechama, the consoling that's going to be coming afterwards. So in these 3 weeks, we read the haftoides of the Pironius. Now interesting. We could take from these 3 weeks and see on what we have to work on in the Yemei Bein HaMetzorim. Divrei refers to the mouth, the words that you talk. Shimi is the ear, to listen out. And Chazoin refers to the seeing, Chazoin Yeshayahu. So it's l'choire, it's a simon for Klal Yisrael. We should work in those days. Everybody could take one akida to watch his mouth more. Lashon Hara, Sinas Chinam. Not to listen to bad things on another person. Only hear Shmuais Toivois, Besoides Toivois, and watching the eyes, Shmiras Einayim. In those weeks we need it even more. It says in the Ksovim, Kisvei Ari, that those 2 months, Tammuz and Av, are against the 2 Einayim, and that's the pasuk Eini Yordu Mayim. We cry on the Churban, but we also have to wash out the eyes and cry on what we didn't do good with our eyes. Eine Yordu Mayim. So those three nekudas. Now, interesting. There's a pasuk, Ki rega ba'apoi chaim b'tzoinoi. And the word rega is Rosh Tevis, Reishis Goyim Amalek. That we read last week. Bilam says, Reishis Goyim Amalek, v'achrisoi adei oivit. In the end is going to be wiped out, Amalek. He was the first one to start. Reishis Goyim. So rega is Reishis Goyim Amalek. The Bnei Yissaschar brings from his Mechuten, the Heilige Zidechoivir, Reb Tzvi Hirsch from Zidechoiv, that Rega is by Gematria 273, the exact Gematria like Peh, Ayin, Oizen. Peh is the mouth, Ayin is the eyes, Oizen is the ears. So Reish is Goyim Amalek, the Rega, where Amalek wants to be us marchik, take us away from Hashem, from Kirvas Elikim, is by trying to harm us with the Einayim, with the Peh, with the Oizen. That's the Rega Ba'apoy Reishis Goyim Amalek. We could use those Evorim, Chaim B'tzoinoi, bring in life to them. Use the eyes, use your mouth, use your Shmiyah, Chaim B'tzoinoi, use it for good things. And that's maybe why those are the three Haftoiris. Divrei is Peh, Shimu is Oizen, Chazoin is Ayin. Those are the 3 weeks, and maybe that's the reason why we finish off Eicha Hashiveini Hashem Alecha V'Noshuva Chadesh Yomeinu Kikedem. Enu us, make us enu. We want to become new people. Chadesh is Rosh Teva is Chazoin, Divrei Shimi. The three Haftoiris. If we're going to be mechadesh ourselves and try to become better in the Koyach HaRe'iyeh, the Koyach HaDibur, in the Koyach HaShmiyah, that could be a gewaltige Tikkun for those days of the Yemei Bein HaMetzorim.
So we don't read Pinchas, we read Matos.
No, we read from Matos, yeah. Only if Pinchas is before the 3 weeks and Matos Maseh goes separately, then we read the Haftorah of Pinchas. But if Pinchas is in the 3 weeks and Matos Maseh is together, so on Pinchas we read the Haftorah from Matos Divrei Yirmiyahu, and on Maseh we say that on Matos Maseh the Haftorah of Maseh Shimu Devar Hashem, and on Devarim the Haftorah from Parshas Chazoin. Now, there's a Sefer Oil HaShomayim from Reb Meir from Apte. He took over the Apte Rav, everybody knows, the Oyev Yisrael from Apte. The Oyev Yisrael from Apte, Reb Avrum Yeshia Heschel, he was actually a Rav in 4 cities. First he was in Kolbasov, then in Apte, then in Yas, and he finished up in Meshbush. And that's where he is buried, and there's a shul in Meshbush. He is called on the name of his second city of Apte. Why did he leave? Even they say a nice remes on the pasuk Hashem Yimloich Le'olam Voed. So the Targum says, we say it by Yevolet Tzion, Hashem Malchis Koim Le'olam Olmayo. So Koim is Kuf Aleph Yud Mem. Kol Besov Apte Yas Meshbush. The 4 cities where he was a Rav. He refers to Malchus Shemayim. His Malucha was Malchus Shemayim. To serve Hashem. Ko'eim, Kuf Aleph Yud Mem, Kol Besov Apte Yas Meshbish. Now when he was at Apte, he once heard the Kruzman HaShamayim. They're calling out that the time arrived that Reb Meir HaLevi should become Rav in Apte. So the Apte Rav was smart, and he understood from this kriz that the time has come that the Oil HaShomayim should become Rav in Apte. He right away left the Rabbanos and he went over to Yas. Like this, he could still stay alive and serve Hashem in Yas. And he gave over the Rabbanos for the Oil HaShomayim that he served as Rav in Apte, and he stayed there and he's buried in Apte, the Oil HaShomayim, Reb Meir from Apte. He brings the last week's Parsha. In Parshas Bolok, Keil Moitziyah Mitzrayim. He speaks about the Indian of Yitzis Mitzrayim, that it's not only once it was Yitzis Mitzrayim. Yitzis Mitzrayim is a Yesoid that, how do you say, it baglaits, it's melaveh, it accompanies. The Indian from Yitzis Mitzrayim accompanies Klal Yisrael towards the whole Tkife. Every day, every person, the whole Klal Yisrael has a Klal, every person has a Yochid. That's why there's a mitzvah of Zechiras Yitzias Mitzrayim every day, because it's actually a Temidius, Keil Mitziyam Mitzrayim. And he explains. He says we know that everything has Olam, Shana, Nefesh. There's in the world, Mokoim, there is Zaman, that's Shana, and then there is Nefesh. As we spoke already a few times, the highest level of Olam, Shana, Nefesh one was when the Kohen Gadol went in Yom Kippur in Kodesh HaKadoshim, so it was the holiest Nefesh, Kohen Gadol, the holiest day in Shana, that's Yom Kippur, in the holiest place in Kodesh HaKadoshim. Yitzias Mitzrayim, he explains, the Oil HaShamayim. In the world, Mitzrayim refers to Mitzrayim, Egypt. That's in the world. But when you speak about Nefesh, Mitzrayim refers to our Yetzer Hara that everybody has. And he has to go out from his Mitzrayim. Now when it comes to Shana, in the time, when is Yitzias Mitzrayim? He says those 21 days are Mitzrayim. It's Bein HaMitzorim. It's called Bein HaMitzorim. It's the days of Mitzrayim. So he goes on and he says, Gewaldig. He says, we see by Yitzias Mitzrayim that Hashem promised us, Va'achre kein yetzu b'rechush gadol. Now, when it was in Olam, we left Mitzrayim, Egypt. We actually went out with a rechush gadol. Gashmi Yazdik. We went out with a rechush gadol. We took out from Mitzrayim. Also, we took out all the Netzoytes HaKdusha that they were in Mitzrayim. We took everything with us. When it refers, he says, to Nefesh, every day that a person goes out another bit from Mitzrayim, Keil Motziyom Mitzrayim, he takes us out every day. He's misgaber on his Yetzer Hara, so it's his Mitzrayim, his Yetzer Hara, he's another bit went out. Even if he falls back, he goes out again. It's a steady, constantly Yitziyam Mitzrayim. That's life. That's why we are here. One of the sibas that the reasons we are here is to live with Yitzias Mitzrayim every day. Try our best to go out from Mitzrayim. And what's the Rechish Gadol? All the Netzoytes HaKdusha that we take out, and every Isgabris that we strengthen ourselves in Kiyam HaMitzvahs or in Isgabris on the Yetzer Hara, that's the Rechish Gadol that we take out from Mitzrayim. Now he goes on and he says, in those 21 days, those are very holy days, because they are very hidden. And in those days, it refers to 21 days, refers to the Shem Ekyeh, Aleph, Hey, and then a Yud, Hey. That's 21 Begematria, Ekyeh. That shows on Tshuva. He doesn't explain why, but the Morva Shemesh says, Pinchas and Rabbe, Ekyeh is considered Bina, Tshuva, because the person says, from now on I'm going to be good. I am going to be good from now on. I don't care what was till now. From now on, I'm going to be good. That's the Shem Ekyeh. That's Tshuva. Goes to Ola Shemayim, and he says, Gevaldi. And he says that in those 21 days, it's in the Shana, it's the Inyan from Bein HaMitzorim, Ki hayomim u'elu em yomim kedoshim ma'oid, avol heim be'iskasye. Every year, when we approach these days, the world and the Inyan from Yitzias Mitzrayim gets more metuken and more metuken, because every year we are zoiche another bit to go out from Mitzrayim. And he says, Vayomim u'elu mesugolim oid l'tshuva. Very, very mesugel to tshuva. Even though tshuva is always good, moil tumah that helps and it works always, but in these 21 days, mo'ilim yoyser, it helps and it works even better than during the whole year. Now he goes on and he says, there's a Loshna Gemara, Karka Niknis. How could you be kohen if you buy or you get a present the karka and you want to make a kinyan chazaka? There are for 3 ways: kinyan kesef, kinyan shtar, and chazaka. So on chazaka, the Gemara says in Kiddushin that you make over there noal, godar, porats. You close it up, you make a lock, you lock it up. But there's also a Gemara in Bavakama that the Gemara says chazaka could also be michidayish ametzre. When he goes by the border and he steps over there and he suppresses michidayish ametzre, that's the pa'ula amaisa of chazaka. Says the holy Oila Shamayim, karka refers to the Shechina Akdosha. He doesn't explain why, but he says Karka refers to the Shechina Gdoishe called Karka. We could say that in those days, the Shechina comes down to us. You know that the holy Pinchas from Koritz says in Imre Pinchas that on Tisha B'Av, when you sit on the floor and we mourn on the Chorban Beis Hamikdash, it's a moiridige eis rotzon that you could ask from Hashem anything and then you could boil it in those days. Specifically even on Tisha B'Av, because we sit down to the floor and Hashem Kavyochel, the Shechina, comes down with us. He's also mourning together with us. And when both mourn together on the Chorban Beis Hamikdash, we are so close. And as we said before, the whole 21 days of Yemei Bein HaMetzorim, the Klal Yisrael could become so close to Hashem. So he says, Karka refers to the Shechina. So he says, what's Chazaka? Chazaka is Mechidayish Ametzre. Dayish is the word, the letters Shakai. Shakai refers to the Shefa that Hashem gives. Shedai Biberchoisov. It's enough for us, the brachas that He gives and showers upon us, that's enough. You don't need anything more. Shedai Biberchoisov. Shakai. Ametzre refers to the days of Bein HaMetzorim. So when is a good time to make chazaka on the karka, get close to Hashem, make chazaka on the karka? Mechidayish hametzre, in those days of Yemei Bein HaMetzorim. So he says, interesting, Roim is liyemei Bein HaMetzorim sheheim mesugolim leparnase. Those days are very mesugal to parnase. Because we mentioned before, whenever there's Yetzias Mitzrayim, there's afterwards the Rechish Godol. So if those days are the days in Shana, in the year, those are the days of Yetzias Mitzrayim, so in those days we have the Segula of Parnasa. Now, even though we know that in the 9 days, you should be Memayit B'Masa Yematan. We don't do so much. We don't work so much. But maybe that's the pshat. If it's Mesugal Parnos, you don't have to work too hard. Other Rabbi. You only have to work a little bit and you have the Gewaltige Broche. Mechidayish hametzre. So he says, Shemamshich Parnose v'shefa memi shedai b'berchoisov liyemei bein hametzorim shem mesugolim lezeh. That they are very, very mesugal to this. Now especially the Shabbosim of the Yemei bein hametzorim, especially the Shabbosim, are tremendous. The Tfere Shloime brings down, we say by L'chodoi di Rav Loch Sheves Be'emek Abocha V'hu Yachmoy Rolai Yechemlo. Poshet Pshat means that the Pait, Reb Shloime Al-Kabetz, the one who made the L'chodoi di, tells and speaks to Klal Yisrael and he says, it's enough. You're already long enough in this Emek Abocha, in this very deep, how do you say Emek? A very deep valley. You're already so long in this deep valley. It's time already for who Yachmer Alai Chemla that Hashem should have Rachmanas on us and take us out from this boy Ragolis. Emi boy Golis Haleini. That's the Poshet Pshat. Comes at Tfere Shloime and he says Sheves we could read as Shabbos. And he says Rav Loch Shabbos be'emek Abocha. Those Shabbosim of Emek Abocha that we are in the deep valley, Bein HaMetzorim, those are the biggest Shabbosim. The biggest Shabbosim. And actually, I saw once that the Beyond the Lemberger Rebbe in Sefer Nachlas Yaakov explains very poshut. He says, Shabbos is Nachlo Beli Mitzorim. The Gemara says on the Posik, V'achalticho Nachlas Yaakov Avichu, someone who is the Shomer Shabbos. What's Nachlas Yaakov? That Yaakov got the broche. Ufuratz to Yomo v'keidmo tzafoino v'negbo. He is like expanding himself without any borders. Nachlo b'li mitzorim. So now, when do you feel more than Nachlo b'li mitzorim? When the contrast is so strong. Like Yisrael oimen achoyshech. From the more choyshech you come out to the light, it's so much makes you so happy, lights up your heart. So if during the weekdays we are in the Yemei Bein HaMetzorim, days that we are like suppressed, we are squeezed in Yemei Bein HaMetzorim, as Shabbos approaches and we go into Shabbos Nachlo B'li Mitzorim, it's Rav Loch Shabbos, it's such a big Shabbosim. We feel the contrast there from the weekdays to the Shabbos. Rav Loch Shabbos B'Emek Abuchu, Gewaldige big Shabbosim. During the Emek Abocha and the 3 weeks. Now let's get back to the Parsha. The Parsha starts Hashem tells to Moshe Rabbeinu, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Ahron HaKohen, Heishev es Chamosi me'al b'nei Yisrael, bekano yeskenasi b'soicham, v'loi chilisi es b'nei Yisrael b'kinusi. Lochein ha'moir, hirin ino Yisrael es brisi shalom, and it should be for him, Elazar Achrov, bris kehin asoilam, tachas ha-shekinei leilekov, v'yechaper al b'nei Yisrael. Last week was the yahrzeit of the Holy Ohr HaChaim HaKodesh on Friday. So I want to share with you a shtickle that says the Ohr HaChaim HaKodesh. And the Ohr HaChaim HaKodesh says like this. Pinchas was zoiche to a tremendous gewaldige schie. He not only was matzah Klal Yisrael from a bad gezaire that was about to come on them, even more than that. The gezaire was already on Klal Yisrael. Heishiv es chamosi me'al b'nei Yisrael. What does it mean me'al? It was already on Klal Yisrael the gezeir. It was like, how do you call it? Floating. It was, floating, or you have a better word?
Hovering.
It's with one O or two O's? It's not hoovering. It's one O, hovering. Yeah. It was hovering on Klal Yisrael already the gezeir of Keloye. And Pinchas was zoiche heishiv. He put it back. Heishiv es chamosi me'al b'nei Yisrael, v'lo ichlisi es b'nei Yisrael. How was he zoiche? He did such a gewaltige Sach, says the Ohr HaChaim HaKodesh, because the kanuas that Pinchas did, and he went and he killed Zimri ben Soli, the Notzi of Shevet Shimon, he did it with 3 gewaltige nekidis, that because he did it like this, that made the gewaltige schie. First of all, he did it on his own. Sometimes a person knows he has to do something good, but he tries to convince, you know what, yeah, that's the right thing that should be done, it should be done. It should be done. Moshe, he came over to Moshe and he says, isn't the halacha kanu in poigim boy? Someone who is boy Aramis? And Moshe tells him, all right, kireyana de igarte, ieleve peravanke. You're the one that you brought the letter. You reminded us this halacha. Go ahead and be the one that should do it. And he goes on and he does it. So he refers to Ohr HaChaim HaKodesh, Bekanoi. Bekanoi refers, he did it on his own, he by himself. Eskinosi. What's Eskinosi? He did it cleanly, only L'Shem Shomayim. He didn't have no other reason in mind, just to do the Ratzon Hashem. Let me tell you the Lashon that he says. Shahoisa hakino bishvil kevoidi levad. Only for my kavod. Kavod is in English? Honor. Only for my honor. Bishvil kevoid loy le'amtzois shum dover zelosoi, for no other reason involved. And now listen to this. Vezui mitzvah shaleime asher yisratza Hashem bo yoiser mikol asher yasa adam. What Hashem loves and He is misratze to a mitzvah that a person does, Hashem looks how much you do it l'shem shamayim. You want it to do because the kavod of Hashem. And if a person does on such a way a mitzvah, that's a mitzvah the shleima that Hashem likes more than anything that a person does. And that refers to eskin osi. He did it for my purpose, for my honor. And the third reason is he did it between people. Everybody saw and he wasn't afraid. He made the Kiddush Hashem. Besoichom. The whole Shevet Shimon was standing around the oil where Zimri ben Soli was inside, and he went in and he killed Zimri ben Soli. Besoichom. He had such Mesiras Nefesh. He made such a Kiddush Hashem when everybody saw. Those 3 things made the gewaldige schie that he was zoiche to have such a gewaldige Heishev es chamosi me'al b'nai Yisrael. So I want to share with you a story. This story is brought down in the Sefer Oid Yosef Chai from the Ben Ish Chai. In Parashat Mishpatim, and the Posik im Kesef Talve Es Ami brings down the Ben Ish Chai story. Once there was a Yid that he was a big Oishir, and in the city where he lived, there was a Choshev Talmud Chochem, a Yorei Shemayim, but he wasn't an Oishir, he was a poor person, and he fell ill. He became very sick. And the doctors in this small village weren't able to help him a lot. They said if they would bring a big doctor from Vienna or from someplace else, maybe they could. So this Gevi said, you know what, I'm going to take it upon myself. And he paid, they should bring the big doctors. And they gave a few medicines that were expensive medicines. He paid for everything. He covered all the medical expenses, bringing the doctors and the medicines. And Baruch Hashem, the seed became well back, and he was a Talmud Chochem, a Choshev in the city, and everybody was enjoying. One night, the seed goes to sleep, and he sees a person with a long white beard and a soup on him, and he's holding behind his, how do you say it, his arm. Behind his arm, he is holding a few booklets. He asks him, what are those booklets? So the seed tells him, this Malach, those are the booklets where I write down mitzvahs of Klal Yisrael. Whatever Klal Yisrael did mitzvahs. One is Torah, one is Tefillah, one is Tzedakah v'Chesed. So this seed asks this Malach, can I have a look in the booklet of Tzedakah v'Chesed? Because lately I had done the Pesach Gevaldige. So he tells him, yeah, for sure, you can open it up. And he opens up, and he finds himself, his name written down, and the mitzvah that he did, what he gave in order to heal this Choshev Yid. And as he goes through the booklet, he sees a person that lives in their village, a poor person, Parashat person, and his name is written in a nicer place than his name is written. So he asks this Malach, is this name this and this person in our village? And he says, yeah. So he said, how come? How could it be? He should be written before me. What did he do? So the Malach tells him, I'm going to explain it to you very simple. He actually also did a big mitzvah, and his mitzvah is more choshev b'shamayim. And I'm going to explain you why. This poor person, his neighbor came over to him saying that his daughter is very sick and he has to buy a Parashat medicine. But this medicine could heal her if it's antibiotic or something similar. And he was missing 3 small matbayas to buy this medicine. You could call it 3 kopikis, 3 groschen, zlotis, whatever you could call it. The matbaya that was missing. And he asks him, I can't borrow, because I don't know when I'm going to pay you back. I'm a poor person. Do you have extra 3 kopikis to give me a matana I should be able to buy? Now this other poor person also, every penny was counted by him, but such a case to help Shochan, he gave it to him, and he bought this medicine, and his daughter had a refiah. And that's why he is written before you. So he says, can you explain me why? He says, very simple, that's how it works over here. You did the gewaltige mitzvah of tzedakah v'chesed, yeah? Actually, you spent the thousands of gold rubles to heal this tzaddik, this Talmud Chochem, but you have a lot of satisfaction from that, yeah? You feel very good about yourself. As you saw me with the booklets, there's a booklet of tzedakah v'chesed right away. You want to see what's going on if your name is mentioned over there. Very good. Not only that, this Choshev Yid and his family, whenever you go by them, Shalom Aleichem, yeah, thank you, they feel such Akora Satoy, and that's how they should feel. But they give you so much pride and honor. And not only them, the whole city. Everybody knows this Yid, he did this gewaltige mitzvah of tzedakah v'chesed. All of this takes down a little bit of the value. What could you do? All of this honor that you're getting and this pride takes down this Parashat that gave the 3 matbayas. He himself has no satisfaction. It's only normal. Probably his friend would do the same to him. It wasn't so easy for him, but after all, he could help a person. He could help him with a food for his daughter to buy the medicine. Now the other person that he helped, he doesn't feel a gewaldig akora satoiv that he has to, and the city, no one knows about it. So the mitzvah that he did was clearly, solely l'shem shomayim, the losh of the Rechaim HaKodesh. When he does a mitzvah, b'shvil kvoidi levad, loy le'emtzois, shum dover zilosoi, zui mitzvah sheleima sheyesratza Hashem bo, yoyse mekoil sheyase adam. This is what Hashem likes the most. I want to finish with a small shtickle of the Holy Sefer, Zer Hashem Shoim. Zer Hashem Shoim. It's this week's Parsha, when the Pasuk mentions that Pinchas killed Zimri ben Soli together with Kozvu Bas Tzir, it's mentioned the Isha, Hamuka, Hamidionis, Kozvi, Bas Tzir, she was the daughter of Tzur, that he was Roish Umois, base of Bemidyanu. He was one of the 5 Roish Umois. Rashi says he was one of the 5 Malcha Midyan, as the Pasuk says, as Evi, Ves Rekem, Ves Tzur. It's the next week's Parashat, Parashat Matos. And actually he was the most choshev of all of them, because the Pasuk calls him over here Roish Umois. If he was the most choshev, why is he mentioned the Parashat Matos when you kill him, the 3rd? Because he was noyig bezoyim ba'atzmoi. He let his daughter to be herself mafkir, to go out, chaz v'sholem, and to be mafkir herself, to do bad things. That's why he is counted the 3rd one in Parashat Matos. Even though he was a Roish Imois, he was the most choshev. How do you say choshev in English? Important. The most important of all 5 Melachim of Malchei Midyan. He is counted in Parashat Matos when you kill him as the 3rd. Asks the holy Zerah Shimshon, if Lefiu Emes, he was the most important, the most choshev, what do we care if the Pasuk counts him the 3rd? If the Pasuk would have said that he was taken down by the Midyanim, they put him in the 3rd place. All right, that's what the Pasuk wants to say. But if he still stayed the Roish Imois, like you say over here, he stayed the Roish Imois, so what's the chisaron that the Pasuk counts him the 3rd? Adarabbe, if the truth is that he is the 1st, why do you count him the 3rd? So he explains like this. 3 reasons could be the reason why a person should be zoiche to become a king. Malchus. The first reason is Pashat. He comes from the dynasty. He's from the mishpache of the Melucha. So that's why he is row to become a melech, discovered. Or sometimes he's very clever, a very big chacham. That's why they made him melech, because of his chachma. Another reason could be oisher. That means he is very wealthy, and the power that he gets from his ashiris, that makes him to become king. As we see by Achashverosh, the Gemara says in Megillah that how did he become king? From Achashverosh was the Melech Poras, yeah? How did he become? He actually was 127 Medinas, because he gave a lot of money. Now, a person that the only reason why he is a king is because he is wealthy, that's very not choshev. That doesn't show on chashivas. If he is smart, or if he comes from a choshev and mishpacha, he's a mechubit, that could be. So he says like this. First, he was counted as the 1st one because they held him in a very high level. He was considered, he was a row, first of all, from the dynasty that he was, from Mishpachas HaMalucha. Then he was very smart. Tzur was also very smart. He was Lamase Bolok, yeah, Kozvi Bas Tzur. And the 3rd reason was he was also very, very wealthy. He promised for Bilam he's going to give him a lot of money. He was very wealthy. Once he told his daughter that she could go out, and he was mafkir his daughter, he lost the kavod and he lost the chokhmah. People said, this is someone from a king dynasty that he lets his daughter? So that shows he has no shaykhis to Mishpachas HaMalucha. And this is called chokhmah, to do such a thing? He was only left, the only reason why he still stayed was because he had money. This is what the Pasuk wants to tell us. Even though he stayed the 1st one, but the reasons why he stayed one of the Malachim, he didn't have all 3 reasons like before. He was in the reasons he was pushed down, he was only left with 1 reason, only the Sibba of the Oisher. That's why the Pasuk counts him the 3rd to tell us. You should know, if before he had for 3 reasons why they made him for a king, now he was only left with 1 reason. That's how the holy Zerah Shimshon says. Get Shabbos.